originating from the podcast studio inside FAM 360's headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. This is the Above and Beyond Leadership Podcast. The Above and Beyond Leadership Podcast is designed to encourage, equip, and inspire our audience through a combination of inspirational stories and real-life experiences shared by other successful and skilled leaders in a variety of vocations. We hope that the Above and Beyond Leadership Podcast empowers each one of us to step out, step up, and ultimately thrive as leaders. Now here's our host, Mr. Matt Maloney.
What's up, podcast land? Welcome back to another episode with my friend and business coach here, Daniel Steer. We have learned many things about Daniel in the first part of our discussion. And of course, he is the founder of an executive and leadership coaching and strategy consulting firm, Steering Ventures. Today, we're going to dive in a little bit about Daniel. We're just going to dive a little bit into really continuing the conversation, but I think the audience needs to hear what shaped you as a leader, but really derived from your personal life.
Yeah, we're about to get personal.
Yeah, we're going to get real personal here. So, and I think from the last episode, we kind of landed the plane talking about kind of the integrity that leaders need to have, and how that's a kind of a holistic or whole life concept. It's not, this is me as a business persona, this is me as a person, my family persona, and these are two different things that I can silo off or compartmentalize and put on the shelf. It's all one. First of all, why don't you share with the audience a little bit about your family?
I like to say that I grew up in the witness protection program.
Yeah.
It's not actually true. Yeah. But my family moved about every 2 to 3 years growing up, all over the country. So that's the downside for those of you keeping score at home of having a missionary's kid marry an army brat is they move every 2 years because they think that's normal.
Yeah.
So I was born in Ohio, lived in Seattle, Los Angeles, Seattle, Rochester, Atlanta, and then I turned 12.
Wow.
So I don't really have a home. Home is a very fluid concept.
Yeah.
Been in Atlanta since 91. Yeah, 91.
Okay.
So I like to think that the Braves went worst first because I showed up.
You showed up.
Yeah, it has absolutely nothing to do with that, but I like to think it does.
That was part of your missionary effort with your family.
At 12, I had a big influence on the Braves. And then I've been in Atlanta ever since. Went to undergrad and grad school here and met my wife here. Yeah. And we have 2 boys. Titus is 9. He was born in 2013. And Ransom is my youngest. He's 4.5.
That's great.
So a lot of energy. Spend a lot of my evenings wrestling.
Yeah, as you should with boys.
With a 4.5-year-old and a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Lot of wrestling in the evenings.
Yeah. Well, you had the opposite problem that I had, or had early on, is that you've got a lot of testosterone in your family. I had a lot of estrogen with my girls initially, and then we had the boy third, and didn't do a lot of wrestling with my girls. Did a lot of like pony rides on my back, play horsey. We used to do
tea parties.
A lot of tea parties.
Good.
We did wedding ceremonies, but my oldest daughter would never let her younger sister be the bride, always the bridesmaid.
Always the bride. Ouch. Tough.
It was
like drama.
Yeah. So, and I still see that actually, I think, even at 14 and 13, because they're 20 months apart. So,
okay.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm sure that through your travels and with, part of your family Army, part of your family missionary, and you traveling around so much that you got to see a lot of different people, a lot of different backgrounds, and you didn't know it at the time, but God was using that to kind of shape you, feed into you, and things that perhaps whether consciously or subconsciously have shaped you who you are today. So with that, who set an example of leadership for you in your youth? Maybe someone that stands out.
Leadership's been a big topic for my dad for as long as I can remember. And so we talked a lot about leadership growing up. I remember, my dad kind of challenging me in that at a very early age. So I would say my dad's probably the most influential person, certainly in my early life, around taking leadership seriously, being intentional in that. And I would say in addition to that, I've had the good and bad fortune of seeing a lot of examples of what not to do.
Absolutely.
In leadership.
As we all have.
Through, just moving around a lot, getting put into different organizations, whether it's a school or a church or a sports team. And just having so many different experiences has kind of given me a perspective that I don't think a lot of people have been able to have.
Yeah.
Because
for sure.
I was in a completely new city every 3 years.
Yeah.
And so you're learning a new culture of, okay, what is Southern California like versus upstate New York, and what's normal and what's not normal, and how do people talk? And
gosh, you had this confluence of all these different cultural
dynamics. And then you see, okay, well, this organization blew up, this church split, why? And trying to just, I think, reflect a lot on those cultural dynamics that I think most of us are not conscious of when you grow up in one culture and you stay in that culture. Yeah. It's kind of like talking to a fish about the water. Yeah. It's like, what do you mean water? Like,
this is just what it is,
right? But when you're constantly jumping in and out of different oceans, you begin to notice the difference between the different contexts. And I think that's, now looking back, a very unique but very influential part of my story.
Yeah, that's good. I was going to ask you about, is there a life motto, quote, scripture, creed, but I already know what that is. We shared that on a prior episode with the man in the arena. And I would be remiss for the audience if I didn't at least mention it. It was part of a speech from President Teddy Roosevelt. And I'm not going to go over the quote again. It's a long quote, but
totally
look it
worth
up,
it.
Google it. Find it, the man in the arena. It's awesome. If you are an entrepreneur, seeking to be an entrepreneur, just a leader, or just a lover of just learning things and helping get some perspective, that quote from that speech is powerful. So thanks for sharing that.
I would say that's probably my favorite quote. I don't know if I would call that my life motto, mission, vision, value.
Yeah, sure.
It's certainly hugely influential in my story.
Yeah. Well, and that brings up a good topic about my life or personal mission, vision, values. And I'll go to that in a minute, or maybe it'll come out in this question, but
sure.
How do you, with all the things that you're doing, you got 3 businesses that you're involved in, 1 or 2 that are probably daily, right? With the tech startup, and then of course with Steering Ventures. How do you balance work and personal life?
Not well. So the best answer I have is I need to give you a kind of a caveat. This topic gets real deep, real fast. And
sure.
So I
like narrow and deep.
I don't want you to go there if you don't want to.
Yeah, I like narrow and deep. Let's go.
So I've spent a lot of time putting together what I call my life plan. So life purpose, mission, vision, values, goals. I mean, it's over the top, even for people that like this stuff. Ironically, my wife doesn't like this stuff. So that's, one of the challenges that we're working through. But I have found that framework is really crucial for me to maintain any sense of balance in my personal and professional life, because without that, I don't really have a clear direction of where I'm going, a clear way of measuring my progress in that direction, or any sort of flags that I'm out of bounds. Right? Like, how would I, if I got off the rails, how would I know? And most of us haven't spent the time to put that kind of structure in place. It's taken me years to do this, but now that I have it, it becomes much easier to stay on path and keep life in balance.
Yeah. So it's a compass, right? To some extent.
It's a map, it's a compass, it's even road signs along the way. So happy to share that with you, but it gets really nerdy really fast, and I just don't know if you want to go there.
Well, I mean, I'll let you be the judge of that. I mean, I'm happy to dive into it, but I think, and maybe this dovetails a bit into, the map, compass, road signs along the way, the vision, mission, and core values for yourself, or values for yourself. why don't you share with the audience what that looks like in your personal life? Because, frankly, Daniel and I talk a lot about peeling back the layers of, in my business, of our mission, the vision, which is a evolving vision, and what our core values are, and really instilled in me, and over the years in leading probably thousands of people over the years in and out of the company, our company. Mission, vision, values was something that we talked a lot about, but and it was something that we thought about and we planned around, but not to the level that I've gotten into it with you.
Right.
And it really has been rewarding for me. So thank you for that. And, but as you look at this from a personal perspective, because that's what we're talking about today, is you and kind of how it shaped you as a leader, it sounds like you've got kind of a recipe for this mission, vision, values for yourself in your personal life.
I do. So
let's talk about it.
Here it is.
I like it.
This is really nerdy.
Wow.
Okay.
He brought some stuff. He brought some stuff, folks.
I brought handouts.
Yeah. There's an actual document here that he's brought. So
he's prepped. This is page 1.
Yeah.
It's that bad. All right. So I've spent a lot of time working on this. So this doesn't happen in a weekend, but here's what it is. I have a life purpose statement, which says that God created, called, and equipped me to be a Daniel. Reference that. For me, that name is very important because you think about the character in the Bible, Daniel,
of course.
Right? Daniel wasn't the king. Daniel was the advisor to the king, to some of the biggest kings in the history of the world, right? Nebuchadnezzar and King Darius, and possibly King Xerxes as well. He was the right-hand guy to the most influential people in the world. And I think there's something about that resonates with me and says, okay, I might not be the king, and that's okay. But I think God's created, called, and equipped me to be the right-hand guy to the king. And so what does that mean? My purpose, why I exist, is to pursue shalom by influencing the influential with strategic vision, moxie, and intentionality.
Wow.
That probably means nothing to most people who are listening. Right? Shalom is a Hebrew word that really means not just peace, but like flourishing relationally, socially, economically, like everything up and to the right, right? That's the word shalom. And how I do that is through the 3 things that I've been told over the course of years are kind of the 3 things that I do well, which is thinking strategically, being intentional, and this idea of moxie. There's a little bit of swagger in there. There's a lot of confidence. It can really easily get off the rails really badly. My counselor and therapist calls me a type A-hole. And I think that
my wife sometimes calls me a type A-hole.
Your wife might agree. That is a part of me that I've wrestled with my whole life because particularly in church context, that doesn't tend to be well received.
Yeah, sure.
And yet I don't think the core of it is bad. I don't think the core of it's sinful. It's just really easily gets out of control. So that's my purpose statement. I have a vision statement, which is really, what am I trying to accomplish, right? What's the future I want to see that maybe I'll never get to, but what am I going for? And for me, that vision statement is to influence 10,000 leaders towards spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, organizational, and economic flourishing.
Wow. That's
an ambitious goal.
That's an ambitious goal.
Yep.
10,000.
10,000.
I'm curious. 10,000 didn't come out of the air. Where did that come from?
So it was 1,000. And I sit down and I review my life plan every year with a group of guys who've been doing that every year. And man, that if there was one takeaway, I would say spend a weekend, 3-day weekend with 3 or 4 people you trust.
Yeah.
And just spend it working on your life plan. Do it every year. Yeah. And it's like compound interest.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah.
And so last year it was 1,000 and they all challenged me on that. They're like, you're not thinking big enough. Like 1,000, you could be there by the end of the year. Like that's not a life vision.
Yeah.
Like that needs to be 100,000. And I was like, I don't have the faith for 100,000. I'll meet you halfway. I'll call it 10,000. Yeah. But I think it's a way to kind of challenge the thinking. So values, I'll move through this quickly. Values, the 5 values that I hold myself to are health, intentionality, abundance, moxie, and stewardship. That's how I know if I'm really being the person God's called me to be.
Yeah, sure.
And then I have a mission. How do I plan to accomplish my vision? And there's 3 pillars to that: living intentionally, living abundantly, and living influentially. So that's page 1.
That is page 1, folks.
Page 2 are the habits and goals that align with the mission.
Okay, yeah.
So I have influential living habits, right? What are the things that I want to do regularly? And then what are the influential living goals? If I do these habits, how will I know? What are the results that I would expect to see?
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So I've got things in here about my weight. I've got things in here about my finances, and even just, more tactical, practical things like I've got to get this.
Reading books, I can see.
Certain books I need.
Right, feeding our minds. I talk about that a lot with our kids, feeding our minds.
Abundant living habits. What are the things that I want to do to demonstrate abundance in the way I live, right? So it's, how much money I give away, how much sleep am I getting? How many vacation days did I take this year? Like I measure that stuff because that's how I know if I'm actually living the life that I've decided and that I feel called to live. And then influential living, what are the things that I want to be doing to influence the people in my sphere of influence? So whether that's my kids, my clients, my wife, et cetera. So I've got, as an entrepreneur, I've got a number that I've come to, it's a revenue number, right? That says, look, if I'm being a good steward of the gifts that I've been given and I'm working hard, but not crazy, like, what do I think I should make this year?
Yeah.
And
you've got a number for that.
And I've got a number for that. Right. And I get that doesn't work for everyone if you're in a W-2 kind of situation, but I'm not. And so for me, I'm challenging myself to say, okay, what number would I expect to see if I'm being a good steward?
Sure.
And then I've got all the books that I'm reading. And then page 3. This is my scorecard.
Folks, this is a personal scorecard. I have on the table here.
I have a monthly dashboard that I review with my executive assistant, my wife, and my board of advisors.
Personal board of advisors.
Personal board of advisors.
Yeah, because I think people just wanted to make sure on the personal side, this is a personal. These are the same men that you go away with once a year.
Same guys.
Yeah, right.
Right. So if I'm off track, they're the ones that are going to call me out. So I'm keeping track of my weight, how many hours of sleep, how many workouts, did I take my wife on a date, did I see a counselor this month, how many nights away. Because I travel a decent amount. Sure. But I've put boundaries in place that say, hey, I don't want to travel more than 60 days or 60 nights a year, 5 nights a month on average. Yeah. So when am I over? When am I under?
I can see that you're under on vacations, Daniel.
I am under on vacations.
It's red. I'm assuming red is bad.
Red is bad. But I leave on Monday for the beach, and I'm going to be gone all week next week.
All right.
And I have no meetings. I like it. And I've already got a couple's vacation booked in May. So April and May are going to be awesome.
Yeah, that's good.
Like what I like about this, obviously it's nerdy. But what it does is
that's an understatement.
It's way worse than that. I warned you. I tried to tell you it was bad. Yeah. But what this does is, somebody says, hey, how you doing? Right? Good. Right. But that's not necessarily always the true answer.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
And so I've got a very thorough answer. I can tell you exactly how I'm doing. I'm not getting enough sleep. My workouts are, I haven't been able to get a date with my wife, and having this in black and white and then showing it to people and being like, dude, why have you not had a date with your wife in 6 months? Mm-hmm. Like that's incredibly powerful to keep you on the track that you say you want to be on.
Integrity.
And that integrity, right?
This
is who I want to be.
Yeah.
Will you help me be this person?
That's the integrity piece.
And it's great to have a group of a board of advisors, a group of friends that are kind of helping me stay on this. Long answer to your question about how do I balance personal and professional.
That's a lot.
I warned you.
I've never, I have to say, first of all, let me congratulate you on really seriously being very intentional. We talk about being intentional, being extremely intentional for this on your personal life, right? Mm-hmm. Because I have found, and I can speak for myself, that oftentimes I'm far more intentional about these things in my business than I am about on the personal side. And to your point, it's a holistic life approach.
Right.
Everything is interconnected.
This dashboard is both, right?
Yeah.
It's got my
no doubt.
forecast versus actuals from an income standpoint. I'm talking about, okay, this client looks like he's leaving. This client wants to do more with me.
Yep.
It's all one because I'm one person.
So, you spend the vast majority of your time speaking into guiding other people. That's your career. That's what you do, right?
Yeah.
As a business strategy consultant and executive and leadership coach, what are you doing to feed yourself to grow as a leader? And I know it's in here. I mean, feeding our minds with books and literature and things of that nature. But what are the things that you're doing to kind of grow yourself personally?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this recently. I'm challenged by one of the guys who, Jay Hawkins is his name, and he's really challenged me. I showed my life plan to him a couple of years ago, and he said, Daniel, this is great. There's a lot of good stuff here. You're doing a lot of things. He said, what's your restoration strategy? You've got all these outputs,
right?
Like, what are the inputs that need to feed those outputs?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I'd never thought of it that way. And he's like, yeah, you're just going to burn yourself out. You can't run this hard and not have it and not be very intentional in how you feed yourself.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of a podcast I heard between Tim Ferriss and LeBron James's trainer.
Okay.
And my takeaway from that was his recovery game plan is every bit as scripted as his game plan. Like the moment he walks off the court, he's got a veggie-based protein shake 3 minutes after he walks off the court. He's in an ice bath 7 minutes after. Like, it's that scripted because they know that if they don't recover, they're not going to be able to perform. And so one of my takeaways, and I've shared this probably with you and with a lot of my clients, is professional athletes have 4 settings. They train, they perform, they recover, and they celebrate. And they're very clear on what setting they're in. They never mix, right? They're like, I'm kind of training and I'm kind of recovering. No, you do one at a time. And so I've started to try to...
At least the great ones.
The great ones do, right? The average ones probably just get by on talent alone. But the great ones are very, very clear on where they are. And most white collar professionals, we perform, collapse. We don't train. We don't celebrate. And we don't recover. And we wonder why we're all burnt out. Right. And so one of the things I've started to try to put in my life routines is, okay, what does it look like for me to celebrate? What does it look like for me to recover physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? What does it look like for me to train? Like, how do I become better at my craft? Whatever it is that I do, how do I get better at it? As opposed to just doing more of it, but not actually getting better. And so that's the framework that I use to try to better myself. And so there's a lot of books that I read. I'm getting a lot better at shutting my laptop and putting my phone down and hanging out. One of the things that's really hard for me is to just sit in front of the TV and chill out and watch a basketball game. I don't sit very well. I need to get better at that. That's part of that restorative or recover mode. I love the word restoration personally for me over recover. I like the restorative component of it, right? Train, perform, restore, maybe celebrates before restore. I don't know, depending upon how you want to think of it. But I love that. That's great. And that I think really is critical to anyone who is running a family, running a household, running a business, leading in a community, whatever it might be. So that's great. So talk to me, if you were to go back, what type of advice would you give your younger self now that you've gone through and had the luxury of having all these experiences and the things that you've learned in life? Buy Apple stock.
Buy Apple stock. Yeah.
That would have been nice.
Yeah.
This kind of life planning stuff was already in play in a much less developed way, all the way back to high school for me. I'm just wired like this. So I had a 3 and 10 year plan, even in high school. So
by the way, a lot better than me. I didn't have a plan except for maybe the next day. That was about where I was at the time.
So I think I've always been fairly intentional. I've always had a plan. They've not always been good plans, but there's always been a plan. So there's not a ton of things that I would change, because as I think back, I'm like, oh, I really wish I hadn't done this. But then in doing so, it prepared me for the next thing. So there's not a ton of changes I would make. I think if I was to make any change or any suggestion to my 22-year-old self, I would encourage myself to take more risks, especially in my 20s.
Yeah.
I met my wife when I was 30, and at that point, just life starts to move a little bit faster. Once you've got wife and kids in play, just your risk tolerance is a lot lower. And I love what I've been doing over the last 10, 15 years since I got married and have started on more of an entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
But I think I would have really enjoyed doing some of that entrepreneurial stuff in my 20s.
Sure.
Not a huge recommendation. That would probably be the main thing I would say to my younger self is take more risks personally and professionally.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I just read about a study, and there was a broader context to this study, but one element of the study was they sat down with, I think it was over 100 men and women who were 90 years old or over, and asked about this same question: what type of advice would you give your younger self? And overwhelmingly, the response that was similar was take more risks in life.
Yeah.
Take more risks.
Yeah. Because
you're not going to regret going to the plate and striking out if you're swinging the bat, but you're going to regret it if you sat there and didn't take a swing.
Yeah.
So.
And I think about all the things that I've been paralyzed in fear over, and then had to cross that bridge. And I'm like, that wasn't a big deal. I've found myself unemployed on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
Right. I've had to pull money out of my 401k to pay the mortgage.
Yep.
Like if you had told me that when I was at a Fortune 500 company, I would have broken out in a cold sweat. Yeah. Right. But now I look back, I'm like, yeah, not great. This is not a financial advice. I'm not a certified financial planner. Right. Don't do that if you have the option. But if your back's against the wall and you got to do it, it's not that bad. Like you can survive.
Absolutely.
And yet I was so constrained by this fear of like, oh my gosh, I couldn't touch my 401k.
Yeah.
It's like, you might not want to.
Sure.
It's certainly not the best thing to do, but you're not going to die.
Yeah.
And I think God has had a very strange way of making me this reluctant entrepreneur, because he's put me in these horrible situations. And I've survived, and he's provided. And that's really cool when you look back and you begin to realize I was scared of a lot of things that aren't really that scary. Yeah.
Daniel Steer, let me affirm you are the man in the arena, whether you believe it or not. We all go through struggles, but you're taking swings. And I think that if we really want to experience success as leaders, we must take time to create a mission and vision and values for ourselves. I think that's one of the takeaways I have. Yeah. Well, hey, I can't thank you enough for being here. Thank you so much. Let me leave with this leadership quote by the Reverend W.A. Nance. No person can be a great leader unless he takes genuine joy in the success of those under him. And I think that really personifies what you do. It's part of what your career is. You're looking to ensure that the success of others continues and to flourish. So guys, let's share in each other's successes as we go away and as we all go out to continue to lead above and beyond. Thanks, everyone.